Alrighty, let's rock and roll. Welcome back to another thrilling installment of Fraggoth Reads. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fraggoth, and today we're going to be reading more of, well, actually, the final installment of, whatever this book is that we're reading. Oh, right, Red Noise. By John P. Murphy. It will not be terribly long. There's another 40-something pages, and then the acknowledgments, which are pretty short. Let's see. How to summarize. So, basically, what's gone on is the miner has gone and managed to locate where the person who did the sniping was at, as well as locating or getting McMasters to confront Mary Feeney and ultimately Angelica Del Rio, which ends poorly for him. But that's pretty much it. I mean, Mr. Shine caught a stray bullet and I guess has bitten it, which is a shame. Alas, poor Mr. Shine, we hardly knew ye. And, yeah. Oh, and I guess Herrera doesn't get what he wants because it doesn't look like the miner's going to cut down Angelica or Mary at this point. So I guess now is the perfect time to ride off into the sunset. But because there's another 40-odd pages, I'm thinking that's not what happens. Aren't you? Well, let's find out what happens. Give me one sec to slurp down some more water and we will get rolling. Exeunt. The dockmaster had demanded, and gotten, a hefty bribe to leave his post, yet another debit against the miner's dwindling bank account. Mary entered when he'd left, hefting a single duffel bag that wasn't even full. There was something pathetic about it. Khalid was late, and if he was much later, they'd have to pay off Preston again. The miner and Mary stood awkwardly. They'd tried a couple different conversations in the hours since Tom McMasters died. Everything turned into Mary saying thank you, and that was the last thing the miner wanted to hear. "There's a theater at Station 36, she offered. "You should go see a play when you get there." "A what?" "A play. Like a live vid." Mary shook her head. "What do you mean, live?" The miner explained the concept of a playhouse, the concept of a pre-written script that wouldn't change every time you watched, and then discovered that she needed to explain the concept of stage actors. Like con men who just get paid for practicing the con and never actually rip anyone off. So, Mary said finally, a bunch of people you don't know are going to do something in a dark room for a couple hours. They won't tell you what. They don't want to spoil it, the miner said, feeling the conversation get away from her. They don't want to give too many details, but they get the general idea across. And if you fork over some cash and promise to be quiet, they'll pretend you're not there and let you watch. The miner frowned. How hard did you have to work to make it sound that dirty? I knew someone who used to do that when she needed money. You're not helping. I'm not trying. The miner tried not to laugh, but failed. Hi, what are we talking about? Khalid bustled over to them, sagging under the weight of his various bags. Sorry I'm late. I tried to follow your directions and got a little lost. Why all the secrecy? She's running away from home, the miner said, and ignored the glare that got her. Oh, Khalid said, I wanted to run away and join the circus when I was a little boy. This is kind of the other way around, the miner said, starting to enjoy the growing death glare. What I want to know is, Mary said, why are you staying? That was the conversation she'd been trying to avoid. I started something, she said. I have to finish it. It'll finish itself. Even if the military won't come in now, they're just flailing at each other. You've got a ship. Let's go. Khalid looked uncomfortable. I can reverse your payment if you want. That still leaves me with the down payment the other guy gave me. No, the miner said. She'd paid the balance of 1,000 credits to get Mary the berth on his ship that was supposed to be for the dead sniper, and another 1,000 to get him to leave immediately and quietly before the cargo finished loading, and she wasn't about to succumb to the temptation to get that back. She's going with you, and you're both going now. Mick. No goodbyes. Go. Mick. If you cry, I'll kill you. God damn it, I wasn't going to. Good. Leave. Khalid edged toward the open airlock. I think she might want us to go. Genius, the miner said, and started walking briskly away. I recorded the message for Granddad, Mary called after her. I'll send it when we're away from the station. I explained and left you out of it. I think he'll leave when he gets it. I hope he will. The miner stopped, half-turned her head, and nodded once. I'll hang around a while on Station 36. Suit yourself. Mary went into the airlock then. Khalid started to punch numbers into the airlock control, then seemed to think of something. He caught up to the miner, smiled apologetically, and said, Hey, I was thinking some music might cheer your friend up. Maybe a sing-along? Do you know if she likes Rodgers and Hammerstein? The miner grinned. Mary loves Rodgers and Hammerstein. Don't let her tell you otherwise. Have a good trip. Moderately diabolical. Angelica, alone. Angelica sat in her darkened office, casting unfocused eyes over the video feeds coating her office walls. Most of the exterior cameras were gone. The ones that remained only escaped destruction by virtue of showing the most boring possible views of the station. The interior cameras showed view after view of the rat's nest that was once a casino. She replayed the audio she'd been listening to, and stopped it again after, I recorded the message for Granddad. She was positive that Mary hadn't noticed the bug on her clothes. Positive that this was a genuine conversation. Positive that Mary Feeney really was on the ore hauler that had just disengaged and was wending its way out through the nav arches. But she still felt tense and empty. The Feeneys were occasionally smart about encryption, but that didn't help them if Mary had been wearing a bug when she recorded her message. 3 messages, in fact, the first 2 aborted when Mary's voice halted or trailed off. Angelica had listened carefully for hidden meaning, for some kind of trick. She'd listened over and over. "Hello, Granddad," came Mary Feeney's voice. "I'm sorry that you had to find out this way that I've left, but I decided that it's time to move on. I'm on an ore hauler, headed for Station 36. You can't bring me back, but if you want, you can catch up. You once told me that the good grifter's #1 rule is to know when to make your exit. I'm making mine." It went on from there, and Angelica lost the track of it. The word sister came to her mind unbidden, and she felt like all the air had gone out of her. So much had happened in barely 6 months. So much had happened in only the last week. Everything she'd worked for and built had come crashing down. The old man might take a buyout, might even just leave. Word was that he'd brought his yacht back from wherever it had been. Loaded down with supplies, supposedly. Maybe stocked up autonomously on another station. The rat always did have an exit plan, or 5. Making peace was a fool's game. You couldn't teach an old dog new tricks. You had to let him feel like he'd won. Let him feel triumphant, and he'd accept any defeat. She'd managed his sharp-edged ego for years. With Mary out of the picture, and none of this pass it on to my scion's pride to overcome, she could do that much. The old man would go. She'd clean house, pick a new security chief, and make sure the company rep played ball. Deal with that swordswoman once and for all. She'd be at the top. Alone. Alone. She sat in the dark and remembered the chaos of the reception. Being swept back into the casino, being caged behind steel shutters with a mix of riffraff from all sides. Realizing, frantic, that she couldn't get a hold of Raj. Gritting her teeth to abase herself, to call Feeney, to beg if necessary, just to find out if her brother was safe. Feeney finally answering just as her panic was overwhelming her, and that son of a bitch drunkenly hooting, "Oh, it's only Angelica, whose brother is beastly dead." That numb feeling of shock and loss, that burn of bitter anger, swept back over her. For a moment, she drowned. Angelica wiped her cheeks with the palms of her hands and drew a ragged breath. She pulled up some old editing tools. She spoke a few lines, altered them, and played them back. You couldn't teach old dogs new tricks, no, but oh, you could teach them a lesson. No good deed. Takata's smiling and humming was getting on her nerves. Herrera was smiling too, sort of. He was napping in his booth and looked happy. The idea that the two of them could both be happy in the same place at the same time seemed to disprove some law of physics. "I'll cut you," the miner told Takata, but he just laughed.
"You only act tough," he chided. "That was a good thing you did, even if it was from Mary Feeney."
"You don't care how that leaves things between the old man and Del Rio? One of them's going to wind up on top." He shrugged and pushed his broom around. His annoying little smile stayed plastered on his face.
"I care, sure, but it was inevitable. Besides, if you're still here, that means you aim on finishing up this mess. Even with that busted hand of yours, I don't fancy their chances against you. Even if they team up, which they won't."
"You don't care that Angelica offed McMasters?" That did put a dent in his smile.
"I don't like it, but McMasters was a slime ball. We all knew it, and, well..."
He made a useless gesture, then got back to sweeping.
"It makes Herrera happy, and he doesn't smile much."
"Well, gee, it's Christmas come early." He waved dismissively.
"You act so tough, but if you were anywhere near as callous as you act, you wouldn't have paid that dumbass trucker $2,000.
She scowled into her beer. "Did you hear that?
Khalid's mouth is too big. That was supposed to be secret. What's it matter? You did a good deed. Why don't you accept some credit for it? I just wanted her out of the way. That damn girl had a talent for screwing up my plans. Is that so? She spun in her seat to see Feeney standing in the kitchen door. He looked dapper in his suit and leaned gently on the walking stick he held in both hands. His hooded eyes were ice. Hey, she said casually. Hello, Mick. Which damned girl had a talent for screwing up your plans, pray tell? She heard footsteps behind her in the restaurant main entrance. She turned enough to see a small crowd. In among the baseball bats and stun batons, she counted 2 shotguns and 3 small-caliber pistols. The tall kid, Corbell, stood behind him, looking more serious than she'd ever seen him, dead-eyed. Khalid's ship was almost beyond the nav beacons. If Mary hadn't sent the message, she would soon. Where's my granddaughter, Mick? Am I her keeper? Quoting the first murder at me won't endear you. I'm asking nicely. I don't have to ask nicely. Where is she? She's around, the miner said. The crowd behind her got closer, but hadn't lunged yet. She couldn't really sword fight, not with her hand like that and her knee still hurting, but she could shoot a pistol left-handed even with the bum fingers. That still left a lot of crossfire. Off to the side, Takata was shaking Herrera awake, but there was nowhere for them to get away to. Feeney slowly walked around the bar, tapping his walking stick against the deck. Let's say you come back to my office, and we'll talk. All right, let's do that. She finished off her beer and stood. Say again? Hello, Granddad, Mary's voice was saying in Feeney's office. The message had come in while they were walking back to the hotel. Feeney had calmed down some, but insisted that she accompany him. And so the miner sat in a chair, surrounded by a bunch of armed toughs, and listened. I'm sorry you had to find out this way that I've left, but I've decided it's time to move on. I'm on an ore hauler headed for Station 23. The miner sat bolt upright in her chair. I've decided to become a nun. Don't come looking for me unless you also want to become a nun. You might be a cute nun, but they probably won't allow it. Feeney sat staring into nothing. Another message had popped up. He stopped the one that was describing the joys of convent life and played the new one. Hello, Granddad. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I've decided to throw myself out an airlock. He whirled and stopped it, but there was already another. With a haunted look on his face, he played it. Hello, Granddad. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I secretly married Tom McMasters, and as his widow I've come into an enormous fortune in rancid mustache wax. The voice sounded like her, but the miner refused to believe it. Next. I'm on a search for the biggest dildo ever made. I'm joining the Navy. I'm going to have my head surgically removed in the hopes that I might finally be pretty. I'm on an ore hauler headed for Station 36. The miner jumped in her seat. That one! The moment the words left her lips, she knew she'd made a mistake. Feeney slapped his hand down onto the controls. The endless parade of fake Mary Feeneys went quiet. He said nothing. She asked me for help. She knew this fight with Angelica would end badly, and she thought if she went off on her own, that you'd follow. McMasters had booked passage to Station 36 for his sniper to escape. She took the berth. They left the station 2 hours ago. Are you sure? He said quietly. His calm had menace in it. That's your answer. I rather liked the mustache wax one myself. I don't know where those other recordings came from, she said, but she's on that ship. I'm sorry, this wasn't how she intended you to find out. Just contact it. No! Feeney hurled a book against the window, then started picking random things off his desk and the floor and throwing them in every direction. The thugs behind the miner ducked and cowered. She barely dodged a paperweight. It's a fake! They're all fakes! She's been drugged or hypnotized. It's a fake so I don't go looking for her. You know where she is, Mick. His rant turned to pleading, his hands coming together as though in prayer. I know you know. You have to know. Please, Mick, you have to tell me. I'm sorry, Feeney. She's gone, but you can follow. I'm sorry, too. He glanced up at someone behind her and nodded very slightly. She didn't have time to dodge away from the shadow coming down over her shoulder. Bursts of light blocked her view as searing pain went through her neck and her ears filled with the crackle of a stun baton. She gritted back a cry, but she heaved heavy breaths when it stopped, panting like she'd run up a mountain. They'd been fast with the duct tape, or else they'd applied the prod longer than she realized. Her left arm was immobilized, and strong hands had her right arm, so that her bandaged hand blazed in bright new pain. She wouldn't leave me, Feeney was saying. I know she wouldn't. She's a good, loyal girl. I have to go rescue her, and you're going to help me. She left, Feeney. She rescued herself. She got on a ship and she left. Just listen to the rest of... She didn't scream when the baton touched the top of her head, or when she smelled burnt hair, but shit, that smarted. She wasn't ready when Feeney strode forward and struck her across the mouth. Stars again, and damn it hurt, but the metal jaw probably hurt his hand more. He didn't show it, but he drew back again and didn't punch a second time. She ran her tongue over her teeth, not finding a loose one. Calm down and listen. She's going to Station 36. She'll wait for you. Angelica has her, he said. What does she want? Money? Surrender? The miner laughed sadly and shook her head. Angelica doesn't have her. So you do know where she is? I told you where she is. She told you where she is. She doesn't have the money, and she didn't take any from me. I gave her the money. Feeney hooted. Oh, now I know you're lying. You, the most money-grubbing mercenary I ever met, paying someone else's way? That's a sad little lie, girl. There was a murmuring behind her, surprised. Feeney straightened up. Oh, he said, and looked uncertain. His voice was tentative when he said, Welcome. It's good to see you, my boy. I didn't know... He barked an uncertain laugh. Well, I didn't know you were coming. Funny what happens when you fly through a cloud of radioactive debris, came a voice from behind her. Whoever he was, he had an amused tone to his voice and a faint smoker's rasp. Messes with your senses. Not good for your alarms. You should have seen old Spark's face. He chuckled and put a hand on the back of the miner's chair. She craned her neck but couldn't see. You've got guests. Traitors, Feeney said, and sounded both exhausted and glad for the change of subject. He gestured at the guards standing around the miner's chair, who were looking dazed and uncertain themselves. Take her somewhere. Guard her. When she's ready to talk, tell me, he sneered. Make her ready to talk. They dragged the whole chair instead of cutting her loose, dropping the back so her head hit the floor hard. Disoriented, she caught a glimpse of the newcomer facing away from her as he helped himself to a drink at the sidebar, a tall, thin man wearing a tailcoat and a top hat. A turn of the screw. Corbell paced, trying not to listen to the enthusiastic interrogation going on in the exercise room. Even he could tell they sucked at it, but they could dish out pain. There were two of them. That guy Carter, with his arm still in a stupid-looking sling covered in black leather and studs, and the other was the girl called Whip, who'd helped Raj run him off from the welcoming committee. That seemed like 1,000,000 years ago. Was it only last week? He was supposed to be in charge and had suggested a good cop, bad cop routine, mostly to avoid having to be directly involved. He felt sick to his stomach. Feeney was out of his mind. There was a new guy in there with him, people said.
walked in like he owned the place, and now nobody could get in to see the old man. Another smacking noise inside made him wince. He had to end this just for his own sanity. He heaved open the door, and the three occupants looked at him. Whip looked disappointed, and Carter just gave him that resentful glare again. Their prisoner was bloodied and beaten, but kept her head up, barely. One of her eyes was swelled shut, and her lip was split.
"Take a break," he tried to say lightly. Don't wind yourselves."
Carter took a look at his fist, where two of his knuckles were split. Whip still had the brass knuckles Corbel had thrown at her, and he decided not to remind her of that fact. They looked dubious and exchanged glances.
"What I need a break," Whip said. "Fine. The old man has some sensitive questions he wants asked, and he hasn't forgotten that you two tools used to work for Angelica. Thanks for softening her up. Now piss off."
Their expressions darkened, but they complied.
Thinks because the granddaughter's dead he's second in charge now, huh?
Carter grumbled as they left, probably perfectly aware he could be overheard.
We'll see about that.
"What do I call you?"
Corbel asked, ignoring them.
"Mick?"
She shrugged. He closed the door behind him. The exercise room was trashed. Not during the interrogation, just in general. People had been sleeping on the various mats and the machines, leaving blankets and garbage strewn all over. The back door to the sauna hung open, and he could smell the mold. The locker room behind that... He'd been in there once, and not again.
"I think this is the part," she slurred, "where you ask me questions."
He blinked at her, surprised despite himself.
"Not to tell you your job."
She laughed at her own joke, a ragged, rasping sound that put his teeth on edge.
"Question, huh? Why?"
She made an effort to look him in the eye, and her expression was sardonic.
"If this is a new form of torture, it's working. She's headed for Station 36. Damn, I talked."
He shook his head.
"Why all this? Why are all these people dead?"
She raised an eyebrow.
"Really?
"Really?"
Who the hell knows?"
"You do."
She laughed, softly this time.
I don't. I hate being cheated. I can't stand crooked cops. I can't stand seeing people ground down by the pissant likes of Feeney and Del Rio. All right, I lost my cool. Fine. But why did it work? Why do those two hate each other so much they'll turn this station into a 2-for-1 funeral? I have no idea.
She coughed with the exertion, hacked and spat a pink-tinged gob onto the floor, courteously away from his shoes.
"You could have killed Mary and Raj."
She shook her head.
Once I could have. Once I would have. Now, guess I got soft.
He surprised himself, saying,
"Nothing wrong with getting soft."
"No," she said quietly. "There isn't."
He looked away.
"That gun they took off you that said Happy Birthday on it, that was Ditz's. He was a friend of mine."
She said nothing. Whip had left her switchblade behind on a little tray of tools. He thought about Ditz. Somehow he didn't think Whip and Carter would owe anyone a beer tomorrow. Her eyes followed him as he absent-mindedly picked up the knife. He pushed the button and was puzzled for a second before realizing he held it backward. Turning it around, it popped open. A stubby little thing, sharpened down smaller than it used to be, but carrying a razor's edge. He didn't like torture. She'd told the truth, he figured. Or if she hadn't, she wouldn't. No sense dragging it out, letting creeps like those two get their kicks. No sense letting creeps like those two get their kicks. He walked to the side of her chair and saw her obliquely in the mirror. Her upper half looked languid, almost asleep, but she was slunk down in the chair and her feet were braced against the floor. The cold calculations there. If he went for an arm or her face, he figured she'd just let him do it. Her chin was down, though. To go for the throat, he'd have to come close around back, and that chair would spring off the ground into his face. Her 2 arms were bound with tape to the chair. Her right hand was swollen. Her left hand had burn marks. The last 2 fingers looked like they didn't move, but he squinted and wasn't sure this was new. And wasn't sure that was new, sorry. He took a breath and slashed the tape. For a moment, she didn't move.
Killed escaping, is that your game? That's been tried on me before, kid. Didn't work out so well.
No more killing,
he said. He flipped the knife around, held it by the blade. He held it up out of her reach for a second.
I just want you to know you're no better than us. I don't know why they're dead and I'm alive, and a lot of them were assholes, but they weren't fucking expendable. You got that?
She looked like she wanted to say something, but he handed her the knife, and she just nodded once and got to work on the tape. It parted smoothly, though her movements were halting. He had no plan. He hadn't intended to let her go. Still, in point of fact, had not yet let her go, and still, in fact, had no plan. She rose unsteadily and put the switchblade back on the table. She grinned, showing pink-stained teeth.
It was her grandmother's, right?
There's a new sheriff. The miner gritted through the pain and that had made it through the neural dampers. She supposed she could count it a blessing that those 2 ghouls hadn't thought it was much fun to burn, cut, or smash limbs below the waist. And she was extremely glad to have finally gotten annoyed enough with the hand pain to have had Doc Mills, over his objections, turn the pain regulators back on. Of all the stupid things she'd let them put in her body, those were the ones that scared her. They were addictive and emotionally numbing to boot. They went out through the locker room. It had quickly become obvious that she would need help escaping, and she had pointed out bluntly that Corbell wasn't a good enough liar to get away with his stupid "she hit me and got away" plan. Nothing was guarded on the way. The hotel had too many entrances, and with his reduced force, Feeney was relying on locks. Locks that Corbell could open. They made it into the service tunnels and down to the deck below.
They'll figure out I'm missing soon enough and fan out. If they're smart, they'll check with the doctors.
She considered that sentence.
They'll probably do that anyway.
Corbell nodded. They won't be able to go door to door too close to Angelica.
She shook her head.
Angelica's holed up in the casino. If Feeney's desperate enough, he's got the run of the station. My ship's no good. Takata's restaurant's the first place they'll look.
She'd sent a message to him to lay low, and hoped desperately that he'd heeded it. Corbell considered.
Well, the control shack on the old mechanics bay is still livable, and Sparks cleared out. There are a bunch of places in deep near hydroponics. We split up most of Mr. Shine's stuff, though, so better be careful.
He continued on for a minute, rattling off potential hiding places in the lower decks, including the barber shop where she'd found the fake Geronimo Rommel.
Perfect, she said at last.
What, the barber shop?
No, none of those.
She laughed at his perplexed expression, then winced. Her ribs made laughing hard.
I'm hoping they think like you do. It'll make this easier.
He protested as they made their way counterclockwise and then back up the stairs. They moved slowly, and the miner could feel her implants pulling far too hard on damaged muscles and tendons. With every step, she dreaded that horrible sick feeling of something biological giving way. They could hear noise from the Galleria level as they approached it. Shouting and smashing noises came from down the passageways in all directions. The daylights had dimmed, but when Corbell ducked his head into the main spur, he reported a growing mob. Shots rang out, and the peculiar ping of the anti-projectile lasers, but the occasional scream reminded them that the lasers weren't meant for heavy duty. The miner pressed on through the pain.
That's the security station, That's the security station, Corbell hissed. We've gone the wrong way.
No, she said. That's where we're going.
They made it to the rear door of the security station and banged on it.
"What do you want?"
came a voice from inside.
"We're here to help,"
said the miner. She leaned against the wall next to the door, breathing hard.
"Let us in."
Go away!
Corbel swore, but she shook her head.
Not beaten yet.
Herrera answered her call right away.
Hey, need another favor.
Where are you? Are you all right? We thought Feeney would kill you.
He tried. Listen, you can hire a new security chief, can't you? If the rep hasn't.
She could hear his grin through the comm.
Yes, I can. What title do you want? Commandant? Admiral?
Not me. A guy named Stephen Corbel.
Corbel stared at her, horrified.
He's like you. He wants this shit to stop.
Are you out of your mind?
Corbel demanded.
All right,
Herrera said, cautious.
Where are you? It sounds like you're close to the Galleria.
I'm outside the security station. And that's the other thing. Can you identify yourself to them and tell them to let us in right fucking now?
They listened in silence to the cries and shots from the Galleria, tensed and huddled against the wall as they saw people run by in the main corridor. Corbel had his pistol out, the chromed one they'd taken from her. Happy birthday. Then, amazingly, 1,000,000 years later, the door opened.
You Corbel?
We all fall down. There weren't many video feeds left in the security station, but the few there were Sorry. There weren't many video feeds left in the security station, but the few there were showed Feeney's gang running loose through the station. Panicked calls came in from the remaining Morlocks below decks about his soldiers banging on doors and demanding to search their homes. Angelica's gang stayed holed up in their casino, content to let Feeney's rage burn itself out. After hours of rampage, the calls stopped coming in. The video feeds showed empty corridors. They'd partly raised the outside shutter, just enough to see out, and the Galleria was empty. Only 6 security personnel were left, and they all remembered the miner. They had only been slightly relieved when she put up her hands and said, "I'm turning myself in." Corbel they hadn't recognized, which was probably for the best. They'd found a uniform for him, and the miner was pleased to see that he'd ducked into the back and put it on. Doc Mills arrived at the back door, summoned by someone. The miner never found out who. He examined her while her eyes were still glued to the feeds. When the violence subsided, the miner turned to the 6 cops. They were all in uniform still, looking tired but determined. To her surprise, they had not all predated McMasters. One of them was the fake Rommel, even. Fergus something. Everyone else, they said, had shed the uniforms and either gone to hide out or join one of the sides. The miner surveyed them and Corbel.
"It's going to be a bumpy few days," she said, "but their leaders are exhausted and their sides are in disarray. We'll need to call back anyone who's willing to come. I know a lot of Shine's people went to ground instead of joining sides, and they're armed. We can beat those 2.
"Not you," Mills said. "You're in no shape to fight. If you try to exert yourself, those combat implants of yours will tear you apart."
"Turn them off," she said. "Everything except the pain regulators."
He tried to do it, but after 20 minutes he had to admit failure. "The control module's damaged and in emergency mode. It's all or nothing." She allowed herself a single, quiet sigh.
"Turn them all off, then."
He did. The dulled pain didn't all come back at once. It grew, starting at her hands and legs. Her right hand burned where she hadn't been careful of the broken bone. The knee she'd injured in the Galleria blazed. Pain radiated up her arms, caught her in the ribs. She'd been punched in the stomach repeatedly, and damn could she feel that now. The electrical burns on her neck, the repeated blows to the face, it all came rolling back over her. They watched as she struggled to master it, as she breathed deeply and clenched her jaw. She opened her mouth to speak, stopped herself to be sure, and then repeated, "It's going to be a bumpy few days." The nervous chuckle around the room stopped suddenly. One of the cops, an older woman with a scar parting her hair, went to the window and peered out. "Something's up," she said. "Angelica!" Feeney's crew had come out of the hotel en masse. They stood quietly and grimly, with only Feeney's voice with its megaphone behind them. "Come out of there, traitor! Give me back my granddaughter!" The casino doors opened, and yellow-white smoke emptied out. Angelica's fighters poured out with it, clutching cloths to their mouths and coughing. "Angelica! Get out here!" Her fighters stumbled, dazed. Angelica herself, doubled over with coughing and wheezing, scrambled out of the front doors. Behind her, the dice rolled snake eyes. "Where's Mary, God damn you?" Feeney's voice boomed. "I don't have her!" Angelica held a pistol in one hand like she didn't know why it was there. "She left the station!" "Lies!" The crowd around Feeney had parted, and the miner finally saw the old man and what he was wearing. An old combat carrier suit, mechanical assist legs and arms, and a bulletproof apron. And she saw what he was carrying, why he needed the suit. An 8-barreled black minigun trailing a long belt of ammunition. The miner paled. "I swear to God, John, I don't have her!" "Yes, you do!" He fumbled the megaphone and dropped it, leaving his own reedy voice above the din. "I know you do! Give her to me, you viper!" "I don't have her!" "Bring me my granddaughter! And bring me that snake, Mickey Mouse!" The entire Galleria fell silent, and in that silence the lone stifled snicker echoed. Someone else laughed, and it spread. Feeney screamed incoherent rage, and the minigun roared. The wall of lead sounded like the monsoon. It smothered every other sound, drowning out the casino windows exploding in glittering shards and smoke, smothered the screams of the wounded and dying as they fell in a red mist. Feeney swiveled as the belt swept smoothly through the machine, and the palm trees jerked and spasmed as he edged too close. Bark and splinters flew. Angelica had taken the full brunt of the spray, falling backwards and squeezing off a single shot to ricochet off the dome. She fell and lay still in a spreading pool of crimson. All around her, bodyguards and fighters and stooges fell dead or dove in vain for cover. The thunderous static suddenly cut out, and the miner heard spent shell casings spilled to the ground like poured from a bucket. Feeney's chest heaved, and he dropped the minigun, its barrels ruddy with heat. Half sobbing, half screaming, he tried to take a step in the tangled mechanical suit and fell to his knees. "I beat you!" he screamed. "I beat you, you witch, you traitor! I beat you all! Give me Mary! Give me my granddaughter, you snakes!" Behind him, stunned and clutching their ears, his gang stared at the carnage and the broken and screeching old man. They stumbled to part once more for a tall, thin man with a top hat and a black tailcoat, whose bared chest bore a giant tumor-like lump that blinked blue and red through his stretched, thin skin. The tall man stopped behind Feeney, who raised himself up and drew in breath for another shriek of rage. And then Nuke drew his pistol and shot his grandfather in the back of the head. Peace. "You might as well go," Takata said. The bar around him bristled with dirtied glasses from the morning's drinking, which he wasn't bothering to clean. Herrera snored softly in his corner booth with his cheek mashed against the table and an empty glass clutched in outstretched hand. Corbell, still in uniform, was curled up on the bench across from him. "The government evac ships are on their way, and some nicer private ones for anyone who can afford them. You've still got your ship, at least. You can probably make a pretty tidy profit if you've got a couple berths to let out." The miner stared dully at the steel shutters, which Takata had dropped for some privacy and security. The 6 remaining guards had evaporated after the massacre, and she didn't blame them. She, Mills, and Corbell had made as much of a dash as they could to the lower decks and Mills' clinic. Every step had been agony. He'd patched her up then, bandaged her wounds, taped her injured joints, but given her nothing for the pain, nothing that might make her dopey. She'd been tensed for a fight or for flight, watched for and listened for hours, in shifts with the kid. But the pursuit never came. Corbell, his last nerve finally frayed, had made some discreet calls to someone he thought would be sympathetic, and the response was simple and devastating. Nuke didn't care about her. The criminal king of Station 35 was feeling generous in victory, and she just wasn't a threat. Still, she and Corbell had come up the long way, and in the back door, and if anyone had spotted them, they hadn't cared either. Then he and Herrera had gotten very drunk, and the miner had found a sitting position that didn't hurt much. The pain was receding on its own. Outside, reveling goons drank, smoked up, and had fistfights in the Galleria. Someone was singing who had no business trying. Nobody had cleaned up the bodies and blood of Angelica and her slain gang. Nobody had even moved the old man. The two foes faced each other down in death, and hours on, the stink seeped under the shutters.
"Military's coming in,"
Takata said like he was talking about the weather.
"They'll blockade the place. Either make that tick come out or starve him out. Anaconda's gonna get a black eye over this. You'd better believe it."
She didn't look at him. "What'll you do?" He was quiet long enough that she wondered if he heard her. Then he said,
"It's funny. That kid you made security chief said something to me a little while ago while I was trying to figure that out. He told me, 'You pick your pain.'"
He fell silent again.
"Herrera has to stay until the military comes. He could quit, but he won't. So I'm going to stay with him. Turns out I kind of like the old buzzard. Maybe we get a week together. Maybe longer. I don't know. But that's what I'm picking." "It was a good try," he said. "This is Feeney's fault, really. I don't know where Nuke was hiding out, though. That's what gets me."
Orbiting on Feeney's yacht was what they told Corbell. Loaded up with booze, drugs, and playthings, waiting for the all clear from the old man or for that battery to run out. A few months of going from station to station to find his reputation preceded him, then months in orbit around Station 35, brooding and nursing grudges in solitude. Then that nuclear blast had messed up the alarm sensors. It was all he needed. The joke was on him, though. An hour after he had boarded the station, Sparks and a bunch of the Morlocks had stolen the yacht and fled. Said the miner. "I'm just saying, don't be so hard on yourself." She turned slowly in her seat to look Takata in the eye. "You really want to help?" He looked hurt.
"Of course I do."
"Then find me a good bottle of whiskey."
His face went dark.
"That's how I can help? Oblivion? To hell with that. You don't want to be drunk."
"I want a bottle of good whiskey. Can you get me that or not?"
"Yeah, I can get you that."
His annoyance had turned to anger.
500 credits, you want whiskey so bad.
Drunken lullaby. The miner tried to walk straight, but it wasn't working out for her. The stairs up to the Hotel Astra had been treacherous, but she'd made it without splashing too much of the remaining whiskey. 500 credit whiskey was nothing to spill. She held the bottle in her good left hand, which was fine. It was everything else that was a little unsteady. Fighters saw her, and some of them cheered, and some of them spat at her. They all looked some combination of drunk and uneasy. There was a nervous giddiness in the air. But they pretty much left her alone and continued with their own partying, letting her waltz right into the Astra lobby. The lobby was a disaster. The couches lay on the floor, legs broken. The lights were all either flickering or out, and every flat surface had someone's tag on it. A couple people were passed out, or maybe dead, on the floor. 3 motley-looking drunks seemed to be trying to have sex off behind the registration desk, but kept saying, "Ow!" and "Watch it!" She went for Feeney's office and banged on the door. "I know you're in there! Let me in!" She banged some more until her hand hurt, and then got bored of pounding and started kicking, and the door opened. Nuke loomed. The miner wasn't short, but he was a head taller than her, leaving her to stare into that blinking lump of skin right at chin level. "You," he said, sounding amused. He rubbed his stubbly chin and studied her. "You're drunk." "No, I'm not," she said. "Yes, you are. What do you want?" "I want to come in. Why do you think I was knocking?" He stepped back from the door, still looking amused, but keeping a wary eye on her. He swept out an arm to gesture at the room, causing his shabby tailcoat to come open and leave the giant ugly lump on his chest exposed. The miner could see his ribs behind it, could see the huge scars and skin stretched horribly thin over a familiar dark gray lump with 3 lights blinking red and blue. "Be my guest." She stumbled into the room and took in the mess. Feeney had trashed it pretty well in his anger, but had still left all the furniture in place and intact, and hadn't done anything that couldn't be cleaned up. Now it was a trash heap. The desk was shoved over to one side, its corner smashed through the glass over a shelf. The top shelves were pulled down from the walls, their books and cases and clocks heaped on the floor. A big, stained mattress had been dragged into the middle of the room and was strewn with a tangle of sheets, clothing, and underwear. The miner's sword stood propped against the window, surrounded by hacked-up chairs and disemboweled pillows, and a few spots of blood. "I'm redecorating," Nuke said, watching her. "What do you want?" The miner gave him a knowing look. "I bet you're wondering what I want." He blinked, and then laughed. He had a nice laugh, she thought, easy and natural. "Christ, lady, you are drunk." "Good stuff," she said, noticing the bottle in her hand. "Here, have some. I want to butter you up anyway." She grabbed a glass on the second try and succeeded in sloshing some whiskey into it. Then she took another and sloshed more into it. He watched her drink from her glass, then took a sip of his. "Damn, that is good stuff. So, what do you want?" They both said at once, and laughed. "I want a job," the miner said. "As what? Whiskey disposal?" "No, She frowned. "Is that a thing?" "Jesus." He took a long drink and gave a little cough. "I can't believe Grandad paid you 10 grand. "Underpaid at 10, she groused. "You gotta understand, I am really, really good. Oh, sorry. You gotta understand, I am really, really, really good at killing people." "That good, huh?" He sat in his grandfather's chair, a long, easy arrangement of limbs, and he set the glass on the corner of the desk where she obligingly splashed more whiskey in. Then she pulled up a chair that still had duct tape on the arms. She sat in that and poured herself some more. "Listen," she said, "I once cleared the crew of an entire enemy ship by myself in hand-to-hand combat." She stopped and sipped her whiskey. Nuke, showing some interest now, took a swig himself. "I stuck myself to the side of a recording buoy with magnets. Out there in space, nothing for millions of clicks. I stuck to the side for 18 hours until they came by to pull it in, because they only scanned for explosives, see? Why would they scan for people? That would be nuts, right?" "That would be nuts," he agreed. He tossed back the rest of his drink, and she refilled it, talking. "So they pulled it in, and I peeled myself off it and told it I'd call." He barked a laugh. "And I got out my sword, and I murdered every last one of those motherfuckers. Then I stole their ship, and I brought it back so we could put our own motherfuckers on it, who could pretend to be the original motherfuckers and get into their space station and murder all those motherfuckers." Nuke leaned in, interested. "What happened?" "They got blown up. Friendly fire. Someone on our side didn't get the memo. Can you believe that? I aced all those—" She waved her hand, searching for the word. Motherfuckers, Nuke offered. She pointed at him and finished. All for nothing. He snorted and sat back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. All for nothing, he said, then went quiet. There was this one time. Me and my buddies went to rob some lawyer on the lower level. We weren't broke, just bored. Raj thought it'd be fun. This was the good old days. We did it ninja style. Kept it pitch dark, got the override code from security. This was back before that guy. McMasters? I don't know, I never met the arsehole. We got the code and went in. Easy, right? Like ninjas. He punctuated his story with a long drink. Except for Ditz. Ditz had dropped a metric fuck ton of acid in Except for Ditz. Ditz had dropped a metric fuck ton of acid and didn't tell nobody. And the lawyer, guess what? The lawyer had a dog. Who the fuck has a dog on a space station? So the dog starts barking, right? And Ditz just totally loses his shit and starts screaming about angels coming for him, and the stupid son of a bitch starts shooting. Pow, pow, pow. He acted it out, swiveling in his chair in wild circles. The miner refilled his drink. It's a goddamn shooting gallery in there, so me, I'll say fuck that noise. I make for the door. Only we kept it dark, ninja style, and I picked the wrong fucking door. No shit. No shit. And what's on the other side? The fucking lawyer, completely bugged out, with a fucking baseball bat. Shit, I didn't care about that. I just said, get down, idiot. That moron's high as a kite and armed to the teeth. And we ducked behind the bed and waited it out. Long story short, 2 guys got drilled and the guys who survived beat that fucker down when he ran out of ammo and started wailing about otters. But me, hiding out with that lawyer, I got laid. The miner laughed. Robbed the moron blind on the way out, too, so bonus. He drained his glass and slammed it down. Shit, the miner said, drawing the word out. You're exactly the son of a bitch I want to work for. He said, and yawned. I don't get any fucking money, and that's the I don't got any fucking money. That's the problem. I could pay in drugs, but no cash. Grandad spent it all, He yawned again, opening his mouth wide like a lion. You believe that shit? No, she said. Come on, that's bullshit. He was loaded. Yeah, it's bullshit, but it's true bullshit. This place is a dump and there's no money. And shit, all me old pals are dead, and we're almost out of the booze and drugs even. And fucking Sparks stole me yacht. He shook his head. But fuck all that. I'd rather be top dog in a shit heap like this than somebody's good little soldier out there. I'd rather... He frowned and noticed he'd been sliding in his chair. That's some strong fucking whiskey. Nah, the miner said, sitting up straighter and rolling her shoulders to loosen up. The whiskey's pretty tame. It's all the sleeping pills I put in it. Oh, he said. He stared at her, tried to stand up, and failed. The fuck? Bullshit, he slurred. Why aren't you, Droolin'? I took a handful of antagonists before I started drinking. She yawned despite herself. Shit, now you got me doing it. He furrowed his brow, a look of the purest incredulity on his face as she'd ever seen, and then he slid out of his chair. She watched him a minute to make sure he was really passed out, then carefully stood up. She'd gotten drunker than she intended, even though she'd been stone-cold sober when she'd walked into the hotel. She stopped to strap on her sword. Then she knelt next to Nuke, checked his breathing, and hoisted him up in a fireman's carry. The thing in his chest ground hard into her shoulder and back. She staggered on the first step. Her knee blazed with pain. Whew, she said. This'll be interesting. The door was open, and she maneuvered his tall, thin form through it by scuttling sideways. 3 of Feeney's toughs rushed out from somewhere and boggled. You probably don't want me to drop him, she said mildly. "A fall from this height could kill him, and you know what that'll do."
Where are you taking him?
"My ship."
You bringing him back?
"No." The toughs exchanged looks. Then one of them took a step toward her.
He coughed. Let me get that door for you.
When death is on the line. "You're on my ship," the miner said when Nuke finally woke up and looked blearily around him. For a while there, she wondered if he would ever wake up, or whether his breathing would keep getting shallower and shallower until a faint tick preceded nuclear oblivion. The two of them were in the cargo bay of her ship, she kneeling on her meditation mat, and he sprawled on the hacked-up mattress she'd dragged down to the bottom of the stairs. Her sword lay in front of her. She'd been wool-gathering, looking up through the metal mesh gantry at the plant rooms and the red emergency sign above the escape pod hatch. The pain, dulled by alcohol, had come back with a vengeance. Her implants were all still off. "We're 100 clicks from the station, in case you feel like throwing a tantrum. You're lucky that thing never got infected," she said, pointing at the big blinking tumor on his chest.
"A man makes his own luck," he said, then coughed and spat onto the deck. "What did you slip me? It tastes like I ate my socks."
"Not sure," she admitted. "I've never been one for reading pill bottles."
"Jesus Christ."
I thought a man made his own luck." He stared at her, and then laughed, and then winced.
"You're a piece of work, lady."
She just shrugged. He looked round, then hoisted himself up part way to sit on the stairs.
"So what is this?"
"This is a choice. I could have had Joff take that little toy out of you and leave you to your pals. Might not have gone so well. Or I could have just shoved you out the airlock, I guess. Except I got curious. Angelica told me this story only ends in blood. Mary says we've got a choice. I want to know who's right. So choose. Take those pills over there voluntarily, Joff comes and removes that thing, and we go to Station 36. Or die." His smile vanished.
"If I die, you die. Nowhere to run from an atomic blast on this dinky little ship."
"Didn't plan on running." They eyed each other.
"I don't understand you," he said.
"Me neither. But I understand you." He frowned and looked like he was doing complicated math in his head.
I think I'm going to kill you and take your ship."
She raised an eyebrow. "You can try."
"Yeah."
He ran his hand through his stringy hair.
"Here's the thing. A bunch of people have said to my face that they're willing to die. It's cool. I respect that they think that. Whatever that gets them through the night, you know. But every single time, sister, every single time, they hesitate. Something in the back of their head just freaks out and goes, 'No, don't do it.' And that's all I need to cut those stupid fucks down. Just that split second."
He grinned and put his hands on his knees.
"Hell, I've even given this speech before, and I'm still here."
"You're not going to change your mind?"
"Lady, I don't have to."
The miners nodded, scratched her ear, and said, "Ship, game over."
"Okay, boss. Nice knowing you."
The lights in the hold went out, and then glowed dimly red as the emergency lamps around the edge of the deck grudgingly came to life. The hum of the engine stopped, and the whine of the fans fell in pitch until they ground to a halt with faint scratching noises. Nuke sat still, his alarmed face half hidden in shadow, painted red by the light from the emergency sign on the deck above.
"The fuck did you do?"
"Killed the ship. I'm done fighting, kid. Maybe you can kill me, maybe not. I'm good, but I've taken some hits. So maybe you can kill me. Maybe you can outsmart me, even." She smiled. "But what you can't do is paddle home."
"Turn it back on."
She shook her head. "Can't. That was a one-way trip. The ship's computer deleted itself. Killed the engine, killed the radio, killed life support. I've still got a half bottle of those pills left if you want the easy way out. Or the airlock if you've got more style than I'd give you credit for." She put her hand on her sword. "Or we can fight. Now that we're both going to die anyway, maybe you're curious if you really can beat me." He stared at her, bug-eyed.
"There's always a way out. There's always a cheat."
She shrugged and took her hand off her sword. "Suit yourself. Think it over. I've still got a couple books I always meant to read, so I'm happy to wait out the air. Not much to eat, though. Do you like emergency rations?"
Why the fuck would you do this? Who the hell are you, anyway?
"Because—" She pursed her lips and shrugged. "Well, I guess I'm a sore loser. See, I meant to clean up that station, play the sides against each other, and come out on top, and I kinda fucked it up. Forgot the difference between who I was and who I wanted to be. I only did 2 things that whole time that made anyone's life better. I sent your sister away, and I dragged your sorry ass off the place. So here we are. As for who I am, I guess that's what I've been trying to find out." He stared at her a long time, and then turned and fled up the stairs. The miner gave chase with her sword out, but she was wounded and slow. She made it to the top of the red-lit stairs, gasping in pain, just in time to see his triumphant grin as he stepped into the escape pod.
"There's always a way out," he called. "See you in hell."
He slammed the double hatch closed behind him, and the ship rocked as the pod blew itself clear of the hull. The miner went to the cockpit and peered out the window. She watched it go for a long time. They were designed to get clear of a ship in a hurry, and it really flew. Nasty, claustrophobic things. She'd put the whiskey in there for him, but there was nothing to do, nothing to read. Just air, a couple liters of water, and some emergency rations. Pretty much just floating through space in an armored toilet stall. In this case, an armored toilet stall with busted life support. Its white and red flashers came on once it was well free of the ship, and it extended its antenna arms. Ships all around would hear the automated recording, promising a government-guaranteed reward for rescue, which wasn't really guaranteed since her insurance wasn't paid up, and threatening the treaty-obligated arrest and imprisonment of anyone who fired on an escape pod. That one really was guaranteed. Ish. The red and white lights receded from her ship until they blended together into a single blob, lost among all the stars in the sky. She couldn't tell how long she'd been watching when the window lit up with a flash, and then she sat in the dark. She stared a long time at the stars, not thinking of anything, just aware of a sense of sadness and a kind of satisfaction. Now she knew. "I probably shouldn't have looked right at that," she mused, then raised her voice. "Ship, show's over." The cabin lights came up so fast she had to shield her eyes. Fans whirred to life, and down below the engine resumed its slow heave. "Ship, check for rescue beacons."
"None, boss."
She flipped up the main view screen and had a look at the station. It was far away and looked like a giant misshapen spider clinging to a gray rock. Greenish eyes, the Galleria windows, seemed to glare at her from afar. Some imp of the perverse made her send a request to dock. She limped back down the stairs to make sure Nuke hadn't left behind any surprises. Just his top hat. She pulled open the crate where, with Corbell and Takata's insistent help, she'd stashed all the stuff Nuke shouldn't have found in case he killed her and figured out how to undo the fake shutdown. The rifle, the remaining crap from Feeney's safe, and the hardware encryption key that would let him pilot her ship. She frowned and reached to the back. A paperback book had been stashed there. The Count of Monte Cristo. The miner smiled. She breathed deeply as she flipped its pages. Hints of grease and smoke and beer wafted up at her. She brought it and the encryption key with her to the cockpit. They'd responded to her request to dock. The
"Hell no" was signed Security Chief Corbell.
When she finished laughing and wiped her eyes, she tapped out a goodbye message, deleted it, and pulled up her navigation interface. Her claim was about a week away. She had plenty of fuel and provisions. She could be out there for months. Her finger hovered over the selector. There was something else nearby, too, just a dot on the nav map. A friendly little box told her she could buy fuel and supplies at Station 36. There would be people there. Annoying, complicated, difficult people. She set in a course for 36. What the hell? Why not? And that was Red Noise. Oh, wait, there's acknowledgments. Acknowledgments. Although writing is a famously solitary pursuit, books would not exist without the encouragement, support, and labor of many kind and talented people beyond the author. This book in your hands is no exception. Well, my hands anyway. Your ears, I guess. My family and friends have been enormously supportive at every step in this process. It would take 50 pages to properly thank them all, but I must especially recognize a few. I must first thank Takeko Minami, who taught Japanese at West Virginia University, and Paul Berry, who taught Japanese cinema at Kansai Gaidai University. The former opened many doors for me, including the work of Akira Kurosawa, while Professor Berry encouraged me to study how Kurosawa's work has been repeatedly reinterpreted and remade, a 20-year train of thought that ultimately led to this book. I must also thank the energetic and supportive community of the Codex Writers Group and my various author friends, most especially Ania Lay, Chris Gerwell, Jake Kerr, and Vylar Kaftan for their feedback, and Elaine Isaac, Fran Wild, and Ken Liu for their advice and support. Thanks, too, to the staff, instructors, and my fellow students of the Viable Paradise XIV 14, Viable Paradise 14. Roman numerals. They're fun when you don't expect them. To the folks who wished to be anonymous but were nonetheless invaluable, I also tip my hat. Thank you also to the folks whose hard work, talent, and insight brought this book to your hands. My agent, Evan Gregory, has been invaluable in many ways. The fine folks at Angry Robot have been just amazing, especially my editor, Eleanor Teasdale. Many, many thanks as well to Gemma Creffield, Paul Simpson, and Sam McQueen. Finally, I want to thank Elizabeth Cronenwet. If thanking everyone else properly would have taken 50 pages, listing all the ways she alone has supported me would take 100. I must leave it at, thank you very much. And that was Red Noise by John P. Murphy. So there. So yeah, it's a good one. I think it's a good one anyway. Very Yojimbo, but definitely with enough different twists and turns. The setup premise is Yojimbo, but it has enough twists and turns and reinterpretations to make it really stand on its own very well. Which I approve of wholeheartedly. Good fun. Very good fun indeed. So I'm not actually sure when my next reading day will be. I'm thinking it will probably be next Sunday, but I can't guarantee that. Tentatively it will be next Sunday. This week is a real cluster for me. I will try to get something in on Friday, but I really don't think it'll be more than like something brief. So I don't think Friday's on. So next Sunday. Anything else salient? Not really. I will probably start. What is it? Is it Diaspora? The next chronologically, well, in writing order. Yes, Diaspora by Greg Egan. And then we'll do Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Unless I decide to do Shroud, which I just read myself, like within the last month. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, hopefully people enjoyed. I know I had fun. That book's a banger. I look forward to seeing what else John Murphy comes out with. Incidentally, John P. Murphy. Australian rules footballer. No, I don't think that's him. But let's
check anyway. Born in 45. Nope, that's not him.
Let's try red noise.
So the Bill Nelson's Red Noise is an English new wave band. Really? I'm not seeing...
Yeah. I know it's the noise made by Brownian Motion. You don't have to tell me that.
Goodreads. Let's try that. Are they really gonna make me sign in?
John P. Murphy.
Get out of my way. There we go. What else has he done? I don't think these are all him. So he has a book called Claudius Rex that I'll have to check out. Some of these definitely aren't him. I don't think he did index to the supplements and supplementary volumes of Polly Wissowa's RE2 index to the Natrer and Berechtigungs's works, volumes 1 through 24 of the first, and index to supplementary volume 15. I don't think that's him. I'm guessing. Unless that's the goofiest title being done ever. Published in 1980. Research is fun. Anyway, so that's it for now. That's true. Because...
Let's see. I think the new Peter Watts short story collection is coming out in October, November? When is that out?
when is that out? Let me check. Let's see. Fold Catastrophes, yes. Where are you? Give me a date, you bum! Let me check him. He's got a... It's here somewhere. There we go. September 22nd. I was close. It's like October. It's like October, but not quite. Anyway, we will grab that. I don't know when we'll get to reading that one, but we will give it a whirl. I'll be reading it anyway. I don't know what you guys will be doing. Alrighty, with that, I'm going to scooch. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other as always. I will post in the Discord when I know when I'm going to be around. Next week. Because this week's going to be a bust outside of today. Alrighty.